Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Here are the top stories of the news. Okay, a highway emerges as Abia State People's Democratic Party's governorship candidate. Taraba State government confirms the killing of the 2 wives and 5 children of the chief of Mutumbiyu. On the foreign scene, Pakistan's former president Pervez Musharraf has died after a prolonged illness. Good afternoon and welcome to Spring News at 12 on Western Spring Television. My name is Evelyn Ohiola. Ahead of the March 11th governorship election, Okea Highway has been elected as the People's Democratic Party's PDP governorship candidate in Abia State. Mr. Highway is the immediate past chief of staff to Governor Keze Piazzu, whose 2 terms of 8 years end in May 2023. His emergence followed the death of the former flag bearer, Professor Uchenna Ikone, on January 25th, 2023. Mr. Highway scored a total number of 469 to defeat its closest contestants, the Deputy Governor of the state, Ude Okochukwu, and Lucky Bokwe, who both scored 12 votes. A total of 516 votes were cast in the election, with 12 invalid votes recorded. Ahead of the presidential election, President Muhammadu Buhari has said he will continue to campaign for the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress APC, Bola Tinubu, as the next president of Nigeria. The president spoke before a crowd at the presidential campaign rally in Lafayette Square, where he endorsed Mr. Tinubu and his running mate Kashim Shettima. The APC presidential candidate thanked the president for being the poster boy of his campaign. Tinubu also chided those insinuating that he is having a tough time or a frosty relationship with the president, stating that those who think there are cracks in their relationship would continue to be disappointed. Still in politics, Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi has expressed his desire to put back the country on the path of growth and progress if elected. Mr. Obi disclosed this during the Labour Party presidential campaign in the ancient city of Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital. Obi assured the people of a new Nigeria built on the rule of law, fundamental human rights, property and accountability if elected president come February 25th. He promised to fight insecurity and poverty while seeking the understanding and support of the electorate. The leader of Pan-Yoruba socio-political group Afenifere Chief Ayo Adebanjo was also at the event and urged supporters to vote in Obi, warning that enormous suffering awaits Nigerians if Obi doesn't win the February 25th presidential poll.
We want a Nigeria where if students go to university, 4 years will be 4 years. No more ASU strike. We want a Nigeria where Nigerians will finish, especially our youth, they will have job, they will earn a living. That's Nigeria we want to build.
Still on the 2023 elections, Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has warned cabals reportedly trying to scuttle the February 25th and March 11th general elections to desist from the plot, saying no form of interim government will stand. The governor made this known during a campaign in the Opogbo Nkoro local government area of the state, warning that the people should not let nobody try to scuttle the election. Wike's comment comes barely 24 hours after the flag bearer of the All Progressives Congress APC, Bola Tinubu, campaigned in Ekiti and alleged a sinister plot to cause a crisis that will lead to the postponement and disruption of the February 25th election. Wike, a People's Democratic Party chieftain, also berated the federal government over the scarcity of 3 newly redesigned Naira notes, stating that he believes that the President, Muhammadu Buhari, was misled to approve the policy.
Now then they plot all these things. Do you understand me? But I believe, say, in go here bear the crowns of Nigerians. Do you understand me?
Yes, so
Nobody will tell me say that because of corruption, I do this.
no be true.
We did the fight corruption for 3 months, all of us ago. 3 months, now we fight corruption.
No.
No be so. No be so. This policy now policy when people they target. Say make an invest. When I invest, and I'll go demonstrate. When I demonstrate, the riot fee come. When riot don't come, they say no, fit the election again. Then they will say, no, we do interim government. And I go support interim government.
No way.
The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) conducted a mock accreditation exercise across the country ahead of the 2023 general elections. The Commission last week noted that the exercise would be held yesterday to test the efficacy of the bimodal voter accreditation system (BVAS) in preparation for the presidential and National Assembly elections on February 25th. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmood Yakubu added that the machines used for the mock exercise would be reconfigured in preparation for the main elections. The Commission will be deploying the BVAS machine for the first time in a general election, although the technology has also been deployed in several off-season elections held recently. The Nigeria Immigration Service (NIS) says it has arrested 516 non-Nigerians in possession of permanent voters' cards (PVCs) in Zaria local government area of Kaduna State. Speaking with journalists, Kaduna NIS controller Liman Keelan said the illegal immigrants were from Niger Republic, Togo, Senegal, Cameroon, and Chad. Mr. Keeler said the service retrieved 1,000 PVCs from illegal immigrants arrested within the Kaduna zone during mop-up operations last year. He added that apart from PVCs, some of them are also even in possession of local government indigent firms, which they are going to retrieve. In the meantime, President of the Court of Appeal, Monica Dongba Mensem, says the court has received over 600 pre-election cases. Justice Dongba Mensem spoke when an ambassador with European Union, Samuela Isopi, led a delegation to her office in Abuja, adding that the court started receiving pre-election appeals in November 2022 while more were trickling in. She added that over 60 panels were set up in the various divisions to hear and determine all pre-election appeals filed. She stated that mindful of the pressures under which the honorable justices are working, some experienced registrars of the court were empaneled to summarize the decisions so far made and distribute to the various divisions to avoid conflicts in decisions. While commending the delegation for the visit, Dongba Mensem said the work of election observers played a role in the nation's electoral reforms.
It is pertinent to state that the role of these observant organizations have greatly impacted the resolve to review the Electoral Act 2010, out of which came the Electoral Act 2022, with some laudable innovations to strengthen our democratic policies and ensure credible elections. The Court of Appeal has reviewed, developed, and expanded the scope of working materials for judges on the electoral process. We now have the Judicial Electoral Manual, which incorporates decisions of the Supreme Court and of those of this court on critical fundamental sections of the Electoral Act to ease interpretation by election.
Now to security matters, the Taraba state government has confirmed the killing of the 2 wives and 5 children of the chief of Mutumbiyu, His Royal Highness Sani Muhammad of the Gasol local government area. The victims were abducted on January 19th by gunmen in their residence in Jalingo, the state capital. The State Commissioner for Information and Reorientation, Lois Emmanuel, in a press statement condemned the murder in strong terms, describing the act as barbaric, ungodly and inhumane. The government regretted that its sustained efforts to rid the state of kidnappers and other forms of banditry has been thwarted by the recent development. The government reiterated its resolve to continue to ensure adequate protection of lives and property in the state. It also vowed to enhance networking with security agencies in the state to bring to book perpetrators of such nefarious act. Lawyers in Imo State will on Monday begin a 3-day boycott of courtroom activities to register their anger over the killing of the president of Ejem Mekuru Customary Court in Naimeka Uboma in Ogutu local government area of the state. About 5 gunmen on Thursday invaded the customary court, dragged the jurist out while he was presiding over a session and shot him dead, sparking public outcry and causing lawyers in the state to ask the police to arrest and prosecute the suspects. The 5 branches of the Nigeria Bar Association (NBA) in the state, in a joint statement yesterday, called for, among others, the provision of security personnel in all courts in the state. The statement decried the constant attacks on judicial officers and facilities in the state. The Nigeria Bar Association (NBA) yesterday condemned the killing of the chairman of Ejem Mekuru Customary Court in Oguta local government area of Imo State in Emeka Uboma in a statement by the National Publicity Secretary (NBA) Akorede Lawal. The bar confirmed that Mr. Uboma was murdered by yet to be identified assailants in the premises of Ejem Mekuru Customary Court in the full glare of other court users. The NBA called on the government of the state to be more deliberate about the security of lives and properties in the state and to particularly beef up security in and around all the court buildings in the state. According to Mr. Lawal, the NBA is committed to getting to the root of Mr. Oboma's murder and will ensure that the culprits are quickly brought to book. Here in Osun, as part of its human development drive and focus, a chieftain for the All Progressives Congress (APC), Honorable David Ayodele Asalu, known as Asla, has provided scholarships to a total of 550 students in Ejigbo local government area of Osun State. 250 students had their West African Examination Council WAEC registration fees paid, while the remaining 300 students were given free UTME forms. The empowerment program and distribution of firms was held yesterday at the Farmers Secretariat in Ejigbo. Addressing the beneficiaries and their parents, Honorable Asalu stated that his concern is to eradicate illiteracy across the region. He advised the beneficiaries to study hard and pass their examinations, as there are further opportunities to support their education in future with further scholarships. Some of the students, including Israel Ogunlaki and Lydia Adejumo, appreciated the philanthropist for his good works and said the act will make them more focused on their studies. One of the parents of the students, Sulaiman Adejumo, extended his heartfelt appreciation to Honorable Asalu, stating that the parents will ensure the students read extensively for their examinations.
Well, I welcome you all to the official presentation of these forms to beneficiaries and use this opportunity to call on other people of means to kindly lend a hand like this to the advancement of indigent people in our society. I also encourage beneficiaries to ensure that they do not take this opportunity for granted. Face your studies and ensure that you put all your mind into the pursuit of quality education. As I have promised earlier, any one of you who distinguishes themselves will stand a chance to enjoy scholarships for tertiary education in their school of choice. I will continue to provide critical support like our ongoing free tutorial program across the local government as the Lord gives me the opportunity to do so.
To be frank, I'm sincerely grateful for what he has done for all of us in Ejigbo. We thank him for his strategy to make Ejibo land to move forward. And we pray that God should help him in the cause and should bless him abundantly and massively in Jesus' name. Okay.
I'm very happy. I'm happy, and I want to thank Honorable Asla that on behalf of my fellow students, we thank him that God will continue blessing him. God will continue blessing him.
You're watching Spring News at 12 on Western Spring Television. We will be right back after this break.
It was a Euro-American trade in slaves by which 12.5 million Africans were captured from their indigenous homelands and transported via the Atlantic to Europe and the Americas. The transatlantic slave, also known as triangular trade, was the worst form of man's inhumanity to man and the most costly in human life of all long-distance global migrations. Hundreds of Africans chained tightly to plank beds in the belly of slave ships in horrific conditions were transported via the Atlantic and stripped of all human dignity on arrival in Europe and America. It is the greatest crime the Caucasians committed against the black race. It is impossible to discuss the transatlantic slave trade without a copious reference to impoverishment and underdevelopment of Africa and its peoples. The triangular trade left the continent in ruins. Western Spring Television identifies transatlantic slave trade as a watershed event in history. Kiriji War, also known as Ekiti-Parapa War, was waged among Yoruba main ethnic groups which emerged from the ruins of the falling Oyo Empire that were desperate to replace the awesome powers hitherto wielded by the Alaafin of Oyo. The Kiriji War is defined as a conflict of confederacy and unitary political system championed by Yorubas of different socio-economic and political interests. The Ibadan military aristocrats felt they deserved a dominant position for saving Yoruba land from being totally submerged by the Fulanis by their victory in Oshobo War of 1840 and Ijaye War of 1862. Kiriji War, that took its name from the booming motor sounds of European arms, festered for so long because the Industrial Revolution in Europe provoked high standards of slaves. The 16-year Civil War also caused the emergence of new powerful kingdoms like Ibadan and the rise of powerful personalities like Oluyole, Ogumola, Kuromi, Latosha, Shodeke, Fabumi, and Ogedengbe. One of the fallouts of Kiriji War was the birth of creative political and leadership structure in Yoruba land that was a blend of federalism and autocratic monarchical system. Western Spring Television identifies Kiriji War as a watershed event. It was a Euro-American trade in slaves by which 12.5 million Africans were captured from their indigenous homelands and transported via the Atlantic to Europe and the Americas. The transatlantic slave, also known as triangular trade, was the worst form of man's inhumanity to man and the most costly in human life of all long-distance global migrations. Hundreds of Africans chained tightly to plank beds in the belly of slave ships in horrific conditions were transported via the Atlantic and stripped of all human dignity on arrival in Europe and America. It is the greatest crime the Caucasians committed against the black race. It is impossible to discuss the transatlantic slave trade without a copious reference to impoverishment and underdevelopment of Africa and its peoples. The triangular trade left the continent in ruins. Western Spring Television identifies transatlantic slave trade as a watershed event in history.
Welcome back. Moving on, one person was killed during confrontation between security agents and protesters yesterday in Oyo State, southwest Nigeria. Hundreds of persons had commenced a protest against the scarcity of naira notes and petrol on Friday, leading to the vandalism of banks, shops, amongst others. In a statement, the police public relations officer in the state, Adewale Osifase, said that the killing of the individual occurred at 10:15 a.m. while security agents were on a combined patrol in the Akpata area of the Ido local government area in the state. He stated that while embarking series patrols around different block spots and flashpoints, the joint convoy patrol comprising of the police and other agencies ran into a band of hoodlums around Akpata Junction Market, Akpata area. He noted that in a rather surprising event, the hoodlum, upon sighting the combined convoy of security, launched a series of unprovoked attacks by firing guns, hurling stones, sharp objects, and other dangerous missiles at the convoy. It was gathered that during the rage, an individual identified to have been a member of a vigilante group was reported to have died in the fiasco and has since been deposited at a government hospital for post-mortem. Kano State Governor Abdullahi Ganduje says Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, Godwin Emefiele, introduced the Naira redesign policy because he failed in his presidential bid. Speaking with BBC Hausa after a meeting of the governors elected on the platform of the All Progressives Congress, APC, with President Muhammadu Buhari, Governor Ganduje alleged that the CBN governor and those around the president did not want elections to hold. The Kano State Governor said the Naira redesign policy was not part of the agenda of the APC. Responding to a question on whether the governors will part ways with the president on the Naira redesign policy, Governor Ganduje said they are only against the policy on Naira redesign by the governor of the central bank and those who the president is surrounded by. For news outside Nigeria, Pakistan's former president Pervez Musharraf has died after a prolonged illness at a hospital in Dubai. Military sources confirmed to newsmen today. 79-year-old Musharraf, a four-star general, ruled Pakistan for nearly a decade after seizing power in a bloodless coup in 1999. The former general was suffering from amyloidosis, rare disease that causes organ damage. He had long been bedridden and wheelchair-bound. In a brief statement released by the military's media wing, senior military personnel expressed their heartfelt condolences on the demise of the former military ruler. According to reports, the former general's family members were meeting to discuss whether his body will be brought back to Pakistan. Musharraf is survived by his wife Sheba and 2 children. In the United States, the U.S. has shot down a giant Chinese balloon that it says has been spying on key military sites across America. The Department of Defense confirmed its fighter jets brought down the balloon over U.S. territorial waters. Defense officials told U.S. newsmen the debris landed in 47 feet of water near Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The military is now trying to recover debris, which is spread over 11 kilometers. 2 naval ships, including one with a heavy crane for recovery, are in the area. President Joe Biden had been under pressure to shoot the balloon down since defense officials first announced that they were tracking it on Thursday. The president said he had ordered the military to shoot down the balloon, but for fear of the debris falling on civilians, the military had to wait till it was over water. However, a few hours later, the Chinese Foreign Ministry in a statement expressed strong dissatisfaction and protest against U.S. use of force to attack the civilian unmanned aircraft. The discovery of the balloon had earlier set off a diplomatic crisis, with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken immediately calling off this weekend's trip to China over the development.
Briefed on the balloon. I ordered the Pentagon to shoot it down on Wednesday as soon as possible. They decided, without doing damage to anyone on the ground, they decided that the best time to do that was as it got over water outside within the 12-mile limit. They successfully took it down, and I want to compliment our aviators who did it, and we'll have more to report on this a little later. Thank you.
Tens of thousands of Israelis have gathered for a fifth week of protests against controversial judicial changes proposed by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government. Protesters in the central city of Tel Aviv braved heavy rains for yesterday's protest, carrying blue and white Israeli flags and chanting slogans against Netanyahu's justice minister. The proposed changes, which the government says are needed to curb excesses by judges, have drawn fierce opposition from groups including lawyers and raised concerns among business leaders, widening already deep political divisions in Israeli society. Critics say Israeli democracy would be undermined if the government succeeds in pushing through the plans, which would tighten political control over judicial appointments and limit the Supreme Court's powers to overturn government decisions. Former Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid was among the protesters in Haifa and spoke in support of the protest. Netanyahu, who is on trial for corruption, has dismissed the protests as a refusal by leftist opponents to accept the results of last November's election, which produced one of the most right-wing governments in Israel's history. To some sports stories, Sebastian Haller has scored his first competitive goal for Borussia Dortmund since recovering from testicular cancer, a goal he also scored on World Cancer Day, February 4, 2023. The former West Ham striker, who returned to action 3 weeks ago, scored Dortmund's third goal with a 51st minute header to help BVB trash Freiburg in their 5-1 Bundesliga clash. The 28-year-old Ivorian striker had been diagnosed with testicular cancer in 2022 and had been ruled out of competitive football to attend to his health. Haller was diagnosed days after signing for Dortmund as Erling Haaland's replacement and needed 2 operations. He has had 4 rounds of chemotherapy and surgery in November. Leicester City manager Brendan Rodgers says Tete was the winger the club has been looking for after the club's new signing shone in an excellent win at Villa Park. The 22-year-old, a short-term signing from Ukrainian club Shakhtar Donetsk, impressed throughout and scored a fine goal to suggest he could prove the spark the Foxes need to avoid a scrap against relegation. Rodgers' side were twice behind the first half but rallied to claim 3 vital points and stem Aston Villa's fine start to life under Unai Emery.
That's what he's all about, Tete. Scored 6 goals on loan for Lyon this season from Shakhtar Donetsk. And he has opened his Leicester City account here.
Before we end the news, here is a recap of our top stories. Ahead of the March 11 governorship election, Okea Highway has been elected as the People's Democratic Party's PDP governorship candidate in Abia State. The Taraba State government has confirmed the killing of the 2 wives and 5 children of the chief of Mutumbiyu, His Royal Highness Sani Muhammad of the Gosal local government area. On the foreign scene, Pakistan's former president Pervez Musharraf has died after a prolonged illness at a hospital in Dubai, military sources confirmed to Newsman today. Remember to follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. That ends Spring News at 12. I am Evelyn Ohiola. Happy Sunday to you.